Now we come to Persian rugs, and these had a very definitive purpose long ago. So most of the Persian rugs that we see are based on Iranian designs, Persian designs, primarily Iranian. And these were very functional pieces. Their function was, when this was a Bedouin, a nomadic society traveling across the desert, this was a way of keeping the sand out of your tent. You would lay this down on the ground and then set up your tent on top. And oftentimes, these would contain everything from a family's lineage covering 20 or 30 years to more geometric, more abstract designs. Now, traditionally, they would have taken 20 or 30 years, but those techniques have changed in more modern times, so we can produce them much more rapidly today. So there's a ruler by the name of Tamap, who's a great patron of the arts and chose to elevate carpet weaving to a national industry, a Persian national industry. And this is a masterwork of his reign. This is one of a pair of carpets, matching pair. This is one of a matching pair, which were placed in a funerary mosque. And the name of the weaver is actually in the rug. We see it up near the top here. And what we see in the West is sort of a basic geometric design. It's something that we simply sit there and go, yeah, it's Arabic, it belongs on a rug, but there's more to it than that. Now, this carpet is 35 by 18 feet and contains roughly 25 million knots, or approximately 340 knots per square inch. That's how you measure the quality of a Persian rug, is knots per square inch. Over 300 is considered good quality. You get much higher knot counts, incidentally, if they're silk as opposed to wool. This is a wool rug, but sometimes they're silk, and it is incredibly fine work, but incredible if you ever get a chance to see one. So let's look at this and figure out what we're dealing with. In the middle, we have what appears to be a medallion or a central starburst. Around it, we have a series of smaller medallions laid out in a symmetrical form. And then we have these two asymmetrical forms in the middle of the carpet as we move out to the corners, where we repeat the medallion with the smaller medallions. But what you're actually looking at, and what you have to imagine here, is that you're looking at a pool of water directly under the central dome in a mosque. So imagine this is a pool of water and we're seeing a reflection. The pool of water has lotus flowers floating in it. And then above, what you're seeing is actually the dome of the mosque. These are mosque lamps. And then we're seeing some quarter domes, much like the half domes that we saw at the Mosque of Selim II, or even in the Hagia Sophia. So we're seeing something very, very realistic. We see this all on a rich blue background, getting across the idea of water, with delicate leaves and flowers seemingly floating on top of that water. So this is an allusion to the heavenly dome with lamps reflected in this pool of water. Now, there are other forms as well. We see garden style. We see a number of different forms of these rugs. There's geometric, there's Garden of Eden, there's Jesse tree, there are even family trees. And you'll notice that in some areas, the dyes look a little bit different, especially when you look at, say, the border of the rug. That's because these are vegetable dyes. So they're dyeing small batches of wool, and obviously the batches are not going to perfectly match. That's also a sign of quality in Persian rugs, because today the more modern rugs use synthetic dyes and are 100% consistent. So it's a sign of appropriate age. Also, these rugs you will never see hung from a wall, or they shouldn't be, because they'll damage the rug. Frequently, they will be left on the floor. You have to walk on them. Otherwise, the dyes tend to fade. So if you don't actually use it, it's not that functional. It loses some of its color and impact. But there's always more to these than what you would think of in a rug. Now this brings us to the canteen. And this is actually the canteen with episodes from the life of Christ. Now you're saying to yourself, he said that this was an aniconic faith, and yet we're seeing images of Jesus. That seems to not make sense. Why would they show Jesus when you've just pointed out that they don't show Jesus? Well, it's because this is a tourist piece. This is basically a souvenir. So at the time, in the mid-13th century, we have Christian pilgrims going to the Holy Lands. And these are not vacations like today where it takes a week. Rather, this would be a trip that would take anywhere from 6 months to 2 years to complete, because you're walking for much of it. And you're going to spend maybe 3 to 6 months in the Holy Land, because this may be the only trip of its kind that you will ever take. So what you're actually seeing is a piece that was purchased by a Christian patron hiring an Arabic or Islamic artist. And that's what makes this very unique. We're seeing this interaction between Christians and Muslims, both artistically and culturally. So what we're looking at are specific scenes from the life of Jesus. In the middle here, we have the Madonna and Child. And it's a little bit stylized, but here's the Child. And we have the Virgin Mary. And then we have angels on either side and above. As we move out, this is Arabic script that has been stylized. So now it has become almost artistic. It's lost a lot of its meaning as it's become this artistic motif, this decorative motif. As we move further out, what we have is the story of the birth of Jesus. Here we have the nativity up near the spout of the canteen. Beneath we have the flight into Egypt. And here we have the presentation at the temple. All three scenes, again, of Jesus' life. And of course, this would be key to a Christian pilgrim at the time. They're trying to relive the final days, relive sort of the steps, or retake the steps of Jesus. As we move up to the spout, we again have those decorative elements that we see in rings around. And the whole thing is just covered in decoration. You can decide to take it apart so that you can figure out exactly what the narrative is, or if you kind of just look at it as a general piece, it's an attractive, decorative piece with this very busy sort of pattern to it. But the importance of this, the significance, I might ask you on an exam, would be that it shows that interaction between Christians and Muslims. It's no problem for the Muslim artist to create this because it's not for a Muslim client. This is being created for a Christian client. And that close interaction and the pragmatic elements of that interaction really tell us something about, even during the Crusades, the thoughts of your average Muslim artisan and your average Christian pilgrim, that they're far more willing to get along than the people running the armies.